The haunted Pope Lick Trestle looms above mist-shrouded woods in Kentucky, the heart of the monster legend. Louisville's eastern edge is a place where city lights give way to wooded shadows, and the air grows thick with the scent of honeysuckle and old secrets. There, winding through the wild undergrowth, flows Pope Lick Creek, a stream as unassuming as the legends that sleep beside it. But ask anyone who grew up in Kentucky's Jefferson County, and they'll warn you about the railway trestle that arches high above the creek. A skeletal stretch of rusted iron and timber, the Pope Lick Trestle slices through the canopy, a lonely sentinel watching over decades of whispered tales. Locals don't just see a bridge, they see the boundary between ordinary life and the unknown. Since the late 19th century, stories have twisted around the trestle like the kudzu vines crawling its supports. Some say you can hear inhuman cries echoing on stormy nights, or spot glowing eyes peering from tangled brush as mist rises off the water. Others swear the real danger is subtler, a voice in your mind urging you up the embankment, a compulsion as cold and relentless as the moonlight. They say this is the work of the Pope Lick monster, a creature part man, part goat, with the shagginess of a sheep and eyes that can bore into your soul. For generations, its legend has been a dare for thrill seekers and a warning for the wise. The tales shift with each retelling. Some claim the monster was a circus freak who escaped into the wild, others that it's a demon cursed to guard the bridge. Yet at the heart of every version lies a single chilling thread, the monster's hypnotic call luring the curious onto the tracks, often with tragic results. In this story, the voices of the past mingle with the determination of the present. Drawn by fascination, skepticism, or simply the desire to face what lies in the darkness, a small group of friends decides to uncover the truth behind the Pope Lick monster once and for all. As they descend into the blue-black woods and cross paths with local historians, grieving families, and their own deepest fears, they discover that some legends are more than just stories, and that courage means more than defying danger. Sometimes, it means confronting the shadows within. Echoes along the tracks. Darren Price had always lived with one foot in the world of facts and the other in the realm of possibilities. As a journalist for Louisville's regional magazine, he'd written about bourbon, bluegrass, and the city's endless festivals. But no assignment had ever gotten under his skin quite like this one. The Pope Lick monster was a story people laughed about over beers or whispered about at family reunions. But ever since the latest accident on the trestle, a tragedy that left a local teen dead, Darren felt compelled to trace the legend back to its source. A group of friends, flashlights in hand, stand in the eerie blue shadows beneath the Pope Lick Trestle. He wasn't alone. When he posted on a local forum, searching for anyone with first-hand encounters or knowledge of the monster, he was surprised by the outpouring of responses. Some sent blurry photos, most likely of deer. Others recounted childhood dares, midnight treks into the woods, holding hands to keep from running at the first crack of a branch. But 3 messages stood out. The first came from Sarah McNeil, a university folklore student whose thesis was, in her words, all about monsters that won't let go. She had spent months compiling oral histories from families who'd lived near Pope Lick for generations. Her message was crisp and direct. You want the truth? Meet me at the trestle Saturday night. Bring a flashlight, and don't go alone. The second was from Tommy Reddick, who'd grown up in a mobile home park not far from the tracks. He wrote simply, I saw something up there once. Never went back. Happy to talk if you're buying coffee. The third was unsigned. Just a warning. If you look for it, it will look for you. Don't listen if it calls. Darren couldn't shake the feeling that this was more than a human interest story. He called Sarah and arranged to meet her, then convinced his friend Lila, an amateur photographer with a love for haunted places, to come along. Lila brought her brother Alex, who'd rolled his eyes but still packed pepper spray and a portable recorder. They met Sarah at a gas station at dusk, then hiked through bramble and muddy tracks until the trestle loomed above them, silhouetted against the darkening sky. Sarah's knowledge was encyclopedic, but her reverence for the place was obvious. My grandma said you should never come here after dark, she whispered. But that's when people feel the pull. They say the monster calls you, sometimes with words, sometimes with music. If you're already hurting or angry, it gets inside your head. The air was colder beneath the bridge. Darren's flashlight cut narrow beams through the fog, revealing graffiti and broken bottles, the detritus of decades of dares and parties. Suddenly, Lila froze. Did you hear that? She hissed. A mournful, high-pitched bleat drifted across the creek. Sarah's face paled. Tommy had agreed to meet them at a nearby diner. Over pie and watery coffee, he recounted his experience. I was 16, coming home from a friend's, cut across the tracks to save time, he said. I thought I saw a guy hunched over on the trestle. Only, his legs bent backward. He turned, and his eyes, white, like milk, but burning. I heard this voice in my head, not words, just a need to keep walking. I snapped out of it when I saw a train's headlight in the distance. Sarah nodded. That matches other accounts. The monster doesn't chase, it calls. It makes you want to be close to it. Some say it mimics loved ones' voices. Or plays a flute. Lila shivered. But why? Is it just trying to hurt people? Sarah shook her head. Some say it was once a man, a circus freak who escaped abuse. Others think it's an ancient spirit, or a warning to respect boundaries. Darren's mind whirled with questions. Was it mass hysteria, a cautionary tale, or something real? He decided they needed to spend a night by the tracks themselves. Maybe then they'd find the heart of the legend, or become part of it. The monster's call. The next night, Darren, Lila, Alex, and Sarah returned to the trestle, this time prepared for anything. They wore sturdy boots and thick jackets, carrying cameras, audio recorders, and enough batteries to light a city block. Each step toward the bridge felt like walking deeper into a legend. A shadowy, horned figure, half man, half goat, is glimpsed across Pope Lick Creek in eerie moonlight. They set up camp in a hollow near the creek, far enough from the tracks to avoid danger but close enough to see the trestle silhouette cut against the moonlit clouds. Sarah busied herself arranging her notes and old cassette tapes. Tommy had declined to join them again but had given Darren a worn photograph, a blurry shot of a hunched shadow on the tracks. Night crept in slowly. As the wind picked up, the woods filled with the sibilant rustling of leaves and the creak of shifting branches. It wasn't long before the sense of being watched crept over them. Lila caught herself scanning the treeline every few seconds, feeling as if something might emerge from the darkness at any moment. Hours passed, marked by nervous laughter and whispered stories. Alex recorded the sounds of night insects and distant traffic. But just after midnight, the mood shifted. The air grew heavy, almost charged, and the woods fell unnaturally silent. That's when they heard it, a faint, distant melody. Not quite music, not quite speech. It seemed to float on the air, threading through their thoughts, curling around their memories. Darren felt an odd compulsion, a yearning to climb the embankment and set foot on the creaking planks of the trestle. Sarah's voice cut through his trance. Don't listen. It wants you to follow. Lila gripped her brother's arm. It's in my head, she whispered. I can hear Mom calling me. Alex's face was pale, sweat beading on his brow. That's not Mom, he said hoarsely. We have to stay here. The melody grew louder, more insistent. Images flashed in Darren's mind. Childhood memories, grief over lost friends, moments of regret. He realized, distantly, that whatever the monster was, it fed on emotion, drawing in those who were vulnerable, those who couldn't resist its pull. Sarah fumbled for her tape recorder and pressed play on an old interview, a woman's trembling voice describing how her brother had vanished on the tracks decades ago. The sound seemed to break the spell. The melody faded, replaced by the sound of an approaching train, its whistle a harsh, physical reality that cut through the fog of enchantment. They watched, breathless, as the train thundered past on the trestle above. In its wake, the woods fell silent once more. But as they packed up their gear, Lila froze. On the far side of the creek, illuminated by a shaft of moonlight, stood a figure, tall and hunched, with curling horns and a shaggy pelt. Its eyes shone pale and pitiless. For a heartbeat, it seemed to study them. Then it melted into the shadows. No one spoke for a long time. When they finally left the woods at dawn, their steps were quick and silent. Each of them carried something new inside, a knowledge that the legend was more than a story, and that some calls should never be answered. Truths written in shadow. After that night, none of them could leave the legend behind. Sarah poured herself into her thesis, tracing every version of the story she could find. She spent hours in county archives and library basements, uncovering articles about freak accidents, mysterious disappearances, and frightened testimonies stretching back to the 1920s. Over time, she pieced together patterns. Tragedy often struck those who came to the trestle already weighed down by sorrow or anger. The monster's lure was strongest for the grieving or lost. Historical newspaper clippings and photographs reveal decades of Pope Lick monster sightings near the trestle. Darren wrote his article, but it was more than an exposé. He framed it as a meditation on fear, how communities invent monsters to explain loss, and how the need for answers sometimes leads people into danger. Yet he couldn't shake the memory of that figure by the creek. His nights were restless, haunted by flashes of white eyes and the echo of that impossible melody. Lila's photographs were stark and beautiful, moonlight glinting on iron, mist tangled in vines, empty beer bottles gleaming in flashlight beams. In one frame, a strange shadow curled among the branches, almost but not quite human. She posted them online, sparking debates between skeptics and believers. For some, the images were proof of something supernatural. For others, just tricks of light and overactive imaginations. Alex withdrew for a while. He'd never believed in monsters, but he couldn't explain what he'd felt by the creek, the sense that something had reached into his mind and tried to drag him away from himself. He started to volunteer at a crisis center, listening to people talk through their pain and confusion. Sometimes, he found himself warning callers, if you feel a pull towards something dangerous, don't go alone. Sarah's research uncovered new layers to the legend. She tracked down descendants of railroad workers who'd built the trestle, learning of strange accidents and rumors of curses. She spoke to families whose ancestors had run a traveling circus in the 1890s. One told her a story about a boy born with hooves instead of feet, hidden from sight until a fire destroyed the circus train near Pope Lick Creek. Whether these tales were true or not, they added depth and sorrow to the monster's myth. Darren's article went viral, drawing curiosity seekers from around the region. More than one reader sent him their own experiences, hearing a flute in the woods, seeing an impossibly tall figure watching from the edge of the tracks. Some were hoaxes, others, he suspected, were honest confessions of encounters with something inexplicable. But as the months passed, tragedy struck again. A pair of high school students, daring each other to climb the trestle at night, were caught by a train. One survived, shaken and unable to remember how she'd gotten onto the bridge. The other did not. The community mourned, and debate flared once more. Was the monster real, or just a symbol of reckless youth and old wounds? Sarah gave a public talk at the library, urging people to respect the dangers of the trestle and to listen to the lessons embedded in the legend. Sometimes, she said, our monsters are warnings in disguise. They remind us that some boundaries exist for a reason, and that grief and anger can lead us places we shouldn't go. Darren returned to Pope Lick one last time before moving away. He stood beneath the trestle at dawn, watching mist rise from the creek, feeling the silence settle around him. In that quiet space, he understood. The monster was real, not just as a creature lurking in shadows, but as the embodiment of the hurts and hungers that haunt every community. Its call was a test of courage, not just the bravery to face fear, but the wisdom to walk away when danger beckons.